running in the upcoming primaries to become the leader of the Labour Party, a party which, as of now, doesn't make it into the next parliament according to most recent polls. Now, if you win, will you consider teaming up with other parties from the center-left bloc?
Good night, Natasha, and thank you for this opportunity. You were mentioning, of course, this wide and very successful operation of vaccines in Israel. And one needs to point out that the reason why it can be carried out so successfully is because Israel has the infrastructure of this public health that was built here by labor from the beginning of the days of Israel. And even though Likud governments for many, many years have tried to privatize parts of this system, still, I think we are facing today the necessity and the way Israel is holding together, even though it's been ruled by a government that many agree is corrupt, thanks to these infrastructures. This is why, for me and for so many others, it's so important to save labor and to restructure it again, to heal through labor also the center-left part of the political camp and Israeli society. This is why I'm insisting on labor, even though, of course, I have had, thankfully, many other options, and many find it hard to believe that it will be possible to rebuild it. But I know that it is possible.
So what is the plan to rebuild? What kind of...
And as much as I understand Israelis that say in the polls they will not vote for labor today, when it is headed by people who have lied to their voters and did the complete opposite of what they promised to do, I mean, that is a rational thing not to vote to these people. But the minute we replace them, we have a new leadership
but
that
you don't
goes
think
back
that...
to the vision and the values of labor. I know we can bring it back.
So, Merav, I mean, are you going to be teaming up, if you do win leadership of the party, with other groups, other parties from the center-left bloc, and who will those be?
Well, first and foremost, I really have to have a party that can pair with others. So I'm going to be focused at that. And then, of course, I'm going to do the responsible thing in order to maximize the political power for our camp. Of course, for labor and for all the voters that want to replace this right-wing regime in Israel. So the minute I'm going to be chair of labor, I'm going to do, whatever's best for our interests.
Now, last night, alternate Prime Minister and Blue and White leader Benny Gantz urged for center-left parties to unite into one bloc against Netanyahu. What do you make of this unity call, and does he deserve another shot?
Benny Gantz had really a rare opportunity to replace Netanyahu a number of times along the way, and he failed to do it. I'm glad that he's now on board for this effort again. I doubt that whatever's left of Blue and White will be a real important part of this, but we need to move forward.
Okay, well, the Labour Party, you mentioned this, went from being a leading political force to almost non-existent at this point. How did this happen, and do you really believe that it can be still saved?
Well, it's been happening for a long time. This is a result of a long-lasting effort by Netanyahu and parts of the right wing in Israel that incited against the left and Yitzhak Rabin and peace at the time, and a lot of things that the center left stood for and fought for. There was a lot of incitement and delegitimization that ended up in really crushing the political center-left camp in Israel. Now it needs to rise again, and this is exactly what I'm invested in doing. I know that the majority of Israelis, and we know that when you poll the issues themselves and not their political representation, you see that the values and the vision of labor are those who, these are the things that Israelis want. So we need to really give it back a credible and truthful representation that people can believe, that a leadership that they know they can trust.
So, Merav,
this is what I'm working on.
You've said in the past that regional peace is impossible without resolving the Israeli-Palestinian issue, but clearly we've seen Israel establish ties now in the last couple of months with various Arab nations without that happening. Do you still feel the same way? And, how do you sell the Palestinian issue at this point to the Israeli people when all seems to be lost at this point in terms of peace? Give us a quick answer on that.
By all means. Listen, the Emirates said it very, very clearly. The reason why they went for the peace treaty with Israel was to prevent the annexation. Still, the Israeli interest is to solve the conflict with the Palestinians. I was always in favor of peace with whatever Arab country we can reach one with. But the most pressing one is here at home. This is the bleeding. This is the existential threat for Israel. This is what we need to leverage all other peace agreements that we now have in order to solve. I know it's doable. We just need the leadership that wants to do it.